Ever get this feeling like uh, there's so much more happening in the world
Hmm.
than we even realize? Like, are we even playing by the right rules?
Yeah, that feeling that things are way more complex, kind of deliberately hidden even.
Exactly, exactly. And, a lot of you listeners out there, you've been sending in some really interesting ideas about, well, about these potential hidden conflicts, and
Yeah.
like maybe the story we're being told, especially when it comes to science, isn't, well, the whole story.
It's like there's this missing piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So in this deep dive, we're going to really try town pack these complex ideas, connect the dots, and really get to the core of it all so you can see the bigger picture without getting lost in the weeds. And if you're into this kind of deep exploration, hit that like button and subscribe to the Journeyman podcast so you don't miss out on future deep dives. We also encourage you to go to the link in description channel and subscribe there for even more content.
We want to give you a clearer lens, to see these big shifts that are happening all around us, stuff that might be impacting your life in ways you haven't even thought about.
And to do that, we're focusing on Eric Weinstein's talk, You're in a War, and You Don't Even Know It. He's got some really challenging ideas about what's going on globally, really makes you question where we're headed.
He doesn't sugarcoat it.
Not at all. And you can find the link to the original talk in the description if you want to go deeper.
Yeah, Weinstein's framework, it can be a bit unsettling, but it offers this really unique way of understanding, well, just how complex things are right now. Makes us question some of our basic assumptions.
Absolutely. Today, we're going to dive into this idea he calls an unseen hybrid war. Then there's this concept of the great nap and its potential end.
Yeah.
Oh, and a pretty surprising claim about theoretical physics, possibly stagnating.
Stagnating. Whoa.
Yeah, right. So let's start with this unseen war thing. Weinstein, he says what a lot of people think are just culture wars. They're actually signs of something way deeper.
Right, like symptoms of a larger problem.
Exactly. He's saying these conflicts, they aren't just random social things happening. They're part of a bigger change in how conflicts are, well, being fought.
Mm.
He brings up this concept of hybrid war, which he points out was actually defined by Frank Hoffman back in 2007. The key here is that these are non-shooting wars with no border and no end.
Non-shooting wars. Wow. No borders, no end. That's a whole different ballgame compared to, traditional warfare.
Right. And Weinstein, he really emphasizes the role of the internet in all this.
Oh, absolutely. The internet, everything being digital, it just blurs the lines of, well, who's even fighting and where the battle lines are. Creates so many opportunities for manipulation, influencing people on a huge scale. Makes pretty much anyone online a potential target, maybe even a participant without even realizing it.
So it's not about armies fighting on a battlefield. It's about influence, disruption, even shaping how people see the world. What kind of tactics do they use in this hybrid war?
Weinstein talks about cyber attacks. That's the obvious one. But then there's diplomacy that becomes a weapon in this non-kinetic fight, and psychological attacks. Think propaganda, undermining trust in institutions, and of course information warfare, controlling the narrative, shaping public opinion. It's complex, multi-layered, and often very subtle.
He mentions this human terrain system. What is that exactly, and how does it fit into this unseen war?
So the human terrain system, it's basically using social sciences like anthropology, sociology, psychology to understand and influence, well, whole populations.
That's kind of scary, isn't it?
It can be. The idea is if you really get a culture or a group, you can achieve your goals more effectively, whether it's military, political,
Yeah.
whatever. Weinstein, he sees this as weaponizing our knowledge of human behavior.
Turning our understanding of people into, like, a strategic weapon.
Exactly.
That leads into his discussion of the whole of society approach, doesn't it?
It does. This idea, it came from the Asia Pacific Security Center, named after Daniel Inouye. It's all about aligning every part of society, government, media, education, even businesses. To deal with these complex hybrid threats, the thinking is you need this unified effort to counter these multifaceted challenges.
And this is where Weinstein brings in his, his interesting term, HOs. What does he mean by that?
HOs, it's his kind of sarcastic way of saying whole of society entities. Basically, he's talking about mainstream institutions, New York Times, Washington Post, BBC, NPR, big established organizations that, in his view, seem to be following this whole of society approach, maybe without everyone realizing it.
And on the other side, there's the Brewer Who are they?
Right, BROS, that stands for Bros United Rest of Society, or sometimes called the ARC. These are the people who, according to Weinstein, aren't part of this whole of society system. They're kind of unaware of this hybrid war he's talking about.
So it's like there's this big disconnect in society, not just along the usual political lines, but in how we even understand these conflicts.
Exactly. And that's where the no-name revolution comes in.
Right, the no-name revolution. Tell us about that.
So Weinstein, he applies this whole framework to what's happening here in the US. He calls it the no-name revolution. And he says it's been going on since 2017. He's very clear that this is a real kinetic conflict. He points to things like buildings being burned, even lives lost, as proof that this isn't just a war of ideas.
Wow. He's saying the social and political unrest we've seen is part of this hybrid war, and it's getting violent.
That's his argument.
He also talks about constant surveillance in this context, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's worried about how widespread surveillance might be. Even suggests everyday things, hotels, our computers, could have hidden ways for people to spy on us. The idea being that in this unseen war, constant monitoring is key.
That's pretty unsettling, especially in a world where we're all so connected. Okay, so we've covered the unseen war. Let's move on to this great nap. What is that all about?
So Weinstein uses Great Nap to describe this long period of peace that the West, especially Europe, has had since World War II. He says it lasted from 1945 until, get this, January 2025.
2025. We're living in the post-Great Nap world.
According to him, yeah. He's saying that time of stability, it's over.
But nap, it's not just about peace, is it? What's he getting at with that word?
Right, nap means resting, but maybe it also implies, well, less energy, even complacency. Weinstein uses this quote from Orson Welles' character, Harry Lime, in The Third Man, to illustrate this. Lime talks about how 30 years of war in Italy during the Renaissance led to amazing art and innovation, but 500 years of peace in Switzerland basically produced, and I'm paraphrasing here, the cuckoo clock.
Yeah, like maybe some level of challenge, even conflict, can spark creativity and progress.
Exactly. Weinstein's questioning this idea that peace automatically equals progress. He's suggesting that long stretches of peace could actually lead to, well, a less dynamic society. He even hints at authoritarian regimes deliberately weakening people this way.
That's a disturbing thought, especially since most people want peace. And that leads into his great trade hypothesis, right?
It does. He says that starting around November 1952, the West basically made this trade-off. They chose a certain level of safety and stability over pushing for big innovations to avoid a massive nuclear war. It was a choice made out of necessity with the Cold War and all.
Wow. The idea that pursuing peace came at a cost, that we might have sacrificed some of our drive or energy as a society. And when did this trade end, according to Weinstein?
He says January 2025. What he's implying is that the reasons for that trade-off, they don't exist anymore. We're in a new era now, maybe more dynamic, but also potentially more dangerous, with a higher chance of real conflict.
So the Great Nap is over, and things might get a lot more unstable, even return to more traditional war. That's heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Now, this next part I found really surprising. Weinstein's saying theoretical physics has stagnated.
I know, right? That was unexpected.
Yeah, so he says progress in theoretical physics basically stopped around 1973.
1973. Why that year?
I know. He even jokes about Crocodile Rock being a hit song back then. But his point is that there hasn't been a truly major breakthrough in our understanding of, the fundamental nature of reality since then. He mentions a report about a meeting between Mark Andreessen and the Biden White House, where they apparently said that progress in certain areas of physics was deliberately slowed down.
Deliberately. Come on, are we talking conspiracy theories now?
Well, he's not saying it's a conspiracy, but he's suggesting it wasn't an accident. He thinks things like string theory got way too much attention and resources, almost like it was pushed as the only way to understand quantum gravity.
Like putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He thinks this sidelined other promising theories and approaches, leading to what he calls a soft sunsetting of alternatives.
Interesting. It's like if all the funding for cancer research went to one specific treatment that might not even work and they ignored other possibilities.
Exactly. And then he brings up the age of Nobel Prize winners in physics.
What about them?
He says the youngest living Nobel laureates in theoretical physics are pretty old, which he sees as a sign that there aren't as many groundbreaking discoveries happening anymore.
Huh. That's a different way of looking at it.
It is. So why does he think this stagnation was allowed to happen?
Well, he says quantum gravity is safe, meaning research in this area of physics doesn't have obvious immediate applications for, weapons or technology.
So it's not seen as a threat.
Right. He thinks this makes it politically safe to collaborate on internationally. Nobody gets a big advantage over anyone else. He also points out that the term quantum gravity didn't really appear in books much before 1972, which suggests it wasn't always seen as this, ultimate goal of physics.
So why is Weinstein so concerned about this apparent stagnation in physics?
To him, it's about the future of humanity, like our long-term survival. He thinks to really expand beyond Earth, we need to overcome the limitations of the speed of light, as we understand it now with Einstein's theories.
So it's not just about physics, it's about breaking free from our solar system.
That's his thinking. He sees our current scientific understanding as trapping us here.
Okay, so where do we go from here? What's Weinstein's solution?
He has this great line. He says, Earth is our womb, not our home, meaning we're meant to go beyond it eventually. Interestingly, he's skeptical about all this talk about China and India leading the way in science. He thinks the biggest challenges and maybe the biggest breakthroughs might actually come from France.
France, really?
Yep. He also talks about the Passover Seder, calls it a survival manual. He encourages people, even those who aren't Jewish, to attend one, to understand this idea of knowing when it's time to leave a bad situation, even when it seems impossible, like the Red Sea parting.
That's a powerful analogy, recognizing when a major change is needed, even when it seems like there's no way out.
Exactly. He thinks we have a short window of opportunity, a time of renewed energy before these conflicts maybe escalate, and he's urging us to use this time to really push science forward to break through these barriers.
So today we've explored a lot Eric Weinstein's ideas about this hidden hybrid war that he thinks is shaping the world, the end of this long period of peace, the Great Nap, and this really thought-provoking idea that theoretical physics might have hit a wall.
Hopefully this deep dive has given you some new insights, maybe a different way of looking at the world. What really stood out to you?
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Are we aware of the conflicts happening around us? Are we ready for what might be coming next? And if science really has slowed down, what does that mean for our future, our ability to deal with the big challenges ahead?
Tough questions, but important ones. Weinstein definitely makes you think about the forces shaping our world.
Absolutely. And this is just the start of the conversation. Keep thinking about these ideas, The link to the original talk is in the description. And if you found this deep dive valuable, hit that like button and subscribe to the Journeyman podcast for more deep dives into complex topics. Don't forget to check out the link in description channel and subscribe there too. Thanks for joining us.